we're going to be talking about how to sell links based on Charles's experience. I sell links as well. Charles, you used to run an agency that was making $250K a month with link building, basically, right?
Yeah, 100%. We started the agency, and it actually, the first month we did $120,000 in sales in the first month, first 30 days that we went live. And it actually kind of overwhelmed us, to be quite honest with you. We weren't really prepared for that level of work, and we kind of had to very rapidly catch up.
You sold too many links.
Sold too many links, exactly. It's a good problem to have, but at the time, any problem doesn't feel like a good problem to have.
By the way, anyone watching this completely live, so feel free to ask any questions as we go along. One thing I want to ask, like right now, there's going to be a lot of people who see other people selling backlinks out there, and they're like, is the market too saturated? Is there room for me? What would you say to that?
100%. There's, number one, I think the market's actually grown quite consistently over the last couple of years, where we've seen the AI content side of things really take away a lot of business from, web designers, content agencies, web devs, all that kind of thing, right? The link industry has probably seen quite a lot of that spend kind of being absorbed into links. And I definitely have seen and spoken to so many different agencies who have started recently and been in the game for 10, 20 years, and all of them are currently at all-time highs. So I definitely would say that there's no room for there's room for new business, but it would depend on maybe your niche and things like that, right? There's certain niches like gambling and stuff like that where it's very heavily saturated, and there are a lot of agencies that are specifically trying to cater to casino and gambling clients.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what are the best niches you reckon to sell backlinks in?
Yeah, so anything where it has basically a kind of higher value, right? So your super low value niches are things like video games and stuff like that, where even if you have a DR 80 or 70 site, right, you could maximum get like $100 a link. And even in those kind of cases, normally the higher end of those link prices are because gambling sites are trying to buy on your video game blog, not actually other video game sites. So those kind of niches you want to try and stay away from, because people don't value the clicks. And a lot of the niche value and ratios, it's a good ratio to compare RPMs in a niche, right? If you have got a very high RPM in your niche, things like insurance, finance, gambling, casino, crypto, all of that kind of stuff, right? Then that translates also generally to high kind of link value. So we tend to try and focus on building links that are going to get a good ROI. So that means that we're trying to acquire assets or websites, blogs, things like that are in niches that the actual acquisition cost isn't as high as what we could be potentially selling the links for, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. We've got a few people on the stream. So Mohammed says hello. Kidozi says hello. And Savesh says excited to see this live. So if anyone has questions as we go along, feel free to ask them. So the other thing as well, like, where do you even get started with this? I mean, some people will be watching this and they don't even know what a backlink is.
Yeah. So number one, if you don't know what a backlink is, I don't recommend selling them straight away, right? I would definitely spend some time learning about link building, because you can go wrong with links, right? And the last thing that you want is angry clients at your door for building the wrong types of links and the wrong kinds of links and things like that, right? In terms of what a link is in the first place, right? It's literally the blue text, highlighted text that you see throughout the website, throughout the internet, on every website that is linking to another page. And Google and other search engines are utilizing that link as a signal within their algorithms to allow those algorithms to better place websites in its search engine.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, for me, like when I was getting started selling off backlinks as a service, right? One of the things that blew my mind was that up to that point, I'd always been a copywriter. So I'd been a copywriter, started off with blog writing, then moved up to sales copywriting. Obviously, sales copywriting, you make a bit more, but it's not that scalable. And so what happens is, like, if you want to earn more money, you just end up working more hours. And there's a limit to that in terms of time and energy. But with link building, when you're selling this, it's kind of like a productized service where more links doesn't necessarily require more work, because you can automate a lot of the process, right? You can automate the outreach, you can automate actually building the backlinks, the emails themselves, and then any sort of manual parts of the process, you can just get someone else to do that for you, right?
Yeah, and you can also niche down, right? Like I just said, if you're fulfilling a specific niche, like home or finance or casino or something like that, then you can start building a database of sites. And bear in mind, that database is augmented and more powerful by the fact that you've already built links from these sites to specific pages, because you can then track the results of those links and you'll know which sites are more powerful than others. And that kind of data compounds over time. So you just get a better and stronger database with more accurate information about how a site or a link is going to affect another site or another link, right? So in general, the more time you put into a specific field within link building, the easier it is to carry out, and hopefully the cheaper and better the links are every single time, right?
We've got another link building legend on the call, Stephen Canner. Shout out to Stephen. Sales and links, your area for sure. Stephen, I mean, like, for example, some agencies, for example, like Stephen working for WordPress, these companies make millions, right? Like, it's such a big, wide market. The amount of people I know that are making 7 figures or higher from selling backlinks is outrageous.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy, right? I think that there's number one, I think, again, Google has kind of forced this hand with their updates and with all these kind of algorithm pushes towards link authority being basically the number one signal for everything, trust signals, anti-spam signals, authority, root authority, relevancy. All of these things are just completely outweighted by site authority and link authority. And that has been the case more and more the case as time has gone on over the last few years. And I think that has created this requirement to build links. And as such, people are just fulfilling the space, right? And I wouldn't even say that, a good majority of the link agencies are even that great at building links, to be
There's a
very
lot
honest.
of ones out there.
There are, like, you Google it. I could, if you go and Google link building agency right now, I would say 3 out of the top 10 are pretty garbage, to be honest. I'm not going to name names, but they're not great. And it's a very common industry kind of secret that these agencies are charging absolute fortunes for very little quality when it comes to actual fruition of these links.
So if we broke it step by step and we said, right, we're going to build out an action plan for someone watching this to start selling backlinks, like, where would you start? What's the process?
Yeah. So number one, if you are already in a niche, start with your niche, right? Because you will know the biggest sites in your niche. You'll already have connections. You'll already know other website owners. You'll already know other potential link customers who want to buy links for that specific niche, right? It's very easy to go into somewhere that you already know, you already have relationships in. You don't need to do all this additional research and relationship building. You still need to probably do some additional relationship building, right? But you don't need to start from absolute zero, start from complete scratch. Normally, if you are starting from complete scratch, you've got a good few months of work to do, to be quite frank, right? And you shouldn't really be selling your first link until you know you can accurately deliver what you are selling, right? And the only way you can do that is by building links for your own sites or test sites or doing something along those lines. You could even potentially go and try and find some clients, say, hey, look, I'm trying to start this new service. I'll sell you links at cost, even if you do it to some agency, something like that, right? Even if it's just a 10% surcharge or something like that, giving you that the PayPal fees covered, things like that when you're buying the links. Anything that gives you that amount of room just to play around with, to build some links, to get some stuff wrong, to get some stuff right, it gives you that experience that will really allow you to propel that ability to build a proper business out of it in the future. I do think if you're completely starting from scratch, right, then the best thing that you have right now is that we all have access to AI. So the fact that we can just start generating pages, we can do research, we can find imagery, we can create all of these new assets and things very, very quickly. It means that actually we can create a lot of the campaigns and the research and the prep work significantly faster than we ever could do beforehand. So I would always recommend that if you're going to completely start from scratch, that you use some of the AI stuff to start building out what you already have. So if you've already got domain names, if you've already got niche sites, if you've already got that kind of stuff, especially if you've got projects that you were focusing on, but you know that they're not going to be making money going forward. I know that I have a lot of those kinds of projects, right, lying around that I've started that never really took off, right? Those are the perfect base to flip into a link profit powerhouse, right? I've spoken to so many SEOs that they've got these small little blogs, these dead niche sites, things like that, but they happen to be DR20, 30, 40, something like that, right? And because of the niche that they're in, you can easily charge $50, $60, $75 per niche edit and maybe over $100 per guest post, right? Even more if you're writing the content. You can double that amount if you're writing the content, and then you just write it with AI anyway, right? So it doesn't really matter about the initial setup. Just get going, right? Start building, start selling, start seeing what you can do, start building some relationships, and that experience quickly gets itself building. And like I said, because there's such a high demand in links right now, you need to be able, there's a need to fulfill it, and if you can fulfill it, you'll get business. That's just how it is.
Yeah, the other thing I would say as well is like the more people that know about you and know what you're selling, the more sales you're gonna get. And like it's so simple. But if you just reach more people with the content that you create online, whether that's YouTube or whether that's Twitter or LinkedIn, wherever it wants, all these platforms work. We get leads every day from all of them. But the more people that know what you sell, the more likely they are to buy it. So like most people are like, oh, why have I not got any clients? And it's not because you have a bad service. It's not because you've got a bad reputation or anything like that, or it's too competitive. It's just that not enough people know about you, right?
100%. I think a lot of people aren't great at creating brand awareness for their services, for their products, even for themselves, especially when they're trying to start out, right? And you need to try and get any amount of lead generation to your business, right? Because that lead flow is going to be the cash flow for your business at the beginning. So I would always recommend spending at least some of your time when you're trying to start a new service, new agency, anything, in marketing it. And I think we lost Julian. So that is fantastic. However, guys, I was just saying, I think you should be marketing it. So,
back in the game.
Back up. Perfecto. Awesome. So I was just saying, I think it's basically about marketing at the beginning. And a lot of people die out because they don't have that initial ability to create kind of awareness of their service and products and things. And especially too many people try to just charge stupid amounts of money straight away, right? You need to kind of also come in with your positioning around your pricing quite well. Because if you're just starting out, you have no case studies, you have no history, you have no clients, you have no referrals, nothing like that, then it will be a bit of an uphill battle to sell, even with some additional, personal brand plays and stuff on social media and things. You still need to have some experience to show for it, and people will read into that quite quickly. So I also, to another kind of point there, think that generally most agency owners, especially in digital marketing, especially in SEO, are quite bad sales guys inherently. And maybe, to be honest, if you go to conferences, right, I would say 70, 80% of the audience are introverted in SEO, right? And introverted people do not make good salespeople, right? That's just like rule 101 of sales is you cannot be inside yourself. You need to be very outgoing and very forward with what your abilities are and what you're selling. So I think that if you're a good SEO, it probably doesn't play into being a good salesperson, right? And if you have got some capital, you've got some cash flow, things like that, I would always recommend trying to get a salesperson in-house as early as possible, especially if they're good, and hold on to that salesperson as much as possible and try and build out systems with them. Don't try and, this is the other thing as well, whenever I work with agency owners who are just hiring sales guys, they always try and tell the sales guy what to sell, right? But that tends to not work either, because you're not allowing them kind of the freedom to do it. You need to have a very solid balance of not being too aggressive with what you're selling, because then you're going to oversell and you're going to underdeliver, and then you're going to have a higher churn rate and higher refund rate and all that kind of stuff. But you also need to have the ability to be wanted in the first place, right? You can have the best service in the world, but if no one knows about it, no one's going to buy it. And if no one believes in it, then no one's going to buy it either. So you need to have both of those things kind of in place. And a lot of people think that, oh, I have the best links, then people are just going to buy it. But that's not really the case, right?
Yeah, that's it. I don't know that many agencies that actually sell good links, honestly. It's like there's so much trash in the industry and they tend to get most of the attention. It's quite an interesting marketplace, really. But I think if you can come in and you can disrupt the market, the main thing is like having case studies. Like if you want to sell to clients, just be like, here's what we did for John, here's how we're going to do it for you. And like that formula just works over and over and over again.
Yeah, 100%. And that trust building from the personal relationship that you have with them through social media and things like that, that gives you a massive advantage, right? Having a personal brand, having that kind of leverage that people have already seen you over and over again, they already believe in what you're saying and things, instead of having a completely fresh call off the bat, that does give you a lot of leeway and it will increase your conversions quite significantly.
Fawad says, I made my first online money selling $350 of links. That's what we're talking about.
Yep, boom.
Giles says 250K. That's what we're talking about. How long did it take you to get to that figure, by the way? I know you already had an audience, so that helped as well at the same time.
Yeah, so like I said, the first month we did about 120K. And then 6 months in, we're up to about 250K a month within 6 months. However, we also probably could have done maybe double that. Bear in mind, at the time, I was like 22 when I was building DFI links. I was quite young, to be fair. And I don't think I was at the maturity level or the skill level or experience level to be in the CEO position that I was in. And we didn't have a sales guy in-house at the time. We were just selling mainly through trust and stuff, which then meant that whilst we had great peaks of 250K and stuff, some months we would drop down to like 90K, 100K and stuff like that because we didn't have the continual velocity of someone selling. I actually think that having somebody in-house who just continually emails people and just is continually ongoing and onboarding things, they pay for themselves in dividends so fast, especially if they're likable and they're a nice person who is good at relationship building. Then people want to reply to them. And that creates business out of thin air, literally, because you don't know what is going on in a client's head until you talk to them. And most people in agencies don't talk to their clients enough. And they shouldn't really be talking to their clients. Their sales guys should be, or their account managers should be, right?
I don't understand that. Like, there's so many agencies out there who I know I've spoken to a few who are scared to email their clients in case those clients turn around and cancel. And so, like, what they do is they just get a client on an auto billing and they just don't email that client at all and just continue building links. So I'm like, that's such a bad way to build a relationship.
Yeah. And also, you're never going to scale that client, right? If they've had success with their link campaign, they will spend more money with you. But if you're not following up, they're not going to do that out organically, right? That doesn't really happen in sales. You need to continually be pushing towards it.
Stephen says, my personal brand image SEO stripper. Any words, Charles? Any words, mate?
Where do we put the bookings in?
How do we order? And let's have a look. So Helene says, this is spot on. Sometimes I rely too much on mouth to mouth. That's yeah, that's the thing. Like you can't rely too much on mouth to mouth. You've got to just get yourself out there and have like something that generates traffic and leads and clients for you long term. And one of the best things about content is it's kind of an asset, right? Like if you set up a YouTube video, we have YouTube videos from like 4 years that still get traffic today.
That's 100%. It's that evergreen content, right? Or evergreen lead flow and passive lead flow. There's a lot to be in a business where you have constant lead demand, right? Where you've just got constant demand for the business.
Stephen says, listening to Charles, I'm quite sure he is a great salesman too, boy genius. Did you learn much about and then also said too much on mouth to mouth? Did you learn like sales as a skill, or like did you take any training for that?
No, but I've done a lot of persuasive copywriting training anyway, right? So there's probably some crossover in being able to come up with the words on paper and being able to come up with the same words in your head kind of thing, right? I just think that you get a lot more time when you're doing persuasive copywriting than persuasive public live speaking,
Yeah, that's it. When you're doing like public live speaking as well, you kind of have to, it's more about giving value, isn't it? It's quite hard to sell unless you're like a massive grifter. Like it's quite hard to sell. It's just like 90% value and then maybe you have a little CTA at the end.
People also don't like selling, right? They feel like this weird obligation to not piss off their audience, and never promote anything, can always be that like golden person. I think it's also that kind of thing on the internet where people tell you you're a sellout because you did something like that, right? And like you get that a lot with the kind of influencer space in digital marketing and SEO. So I definitely think that people are afraid to sell. I also think people tend to think they're going to be judged by their peers and by people that they know and like and respect and things, right? Because they're trying to promote this thing, or they're not as successful as they are because they're selling a $9 ebook or something like that, right? But again, that's the whole point, is that they're still pushing, right? They're actively generating new business, new customers, new emails, new leads, all of these things. And the people who are in that mentality aren't, right? So they're propelling their business forward while the other people are just stuck in their own head.
Yeah, I also think like when you're creating content, just the fact that you show and help people and you show people what you're doing is like they automatically have their idea in their mind, which is how do I hire this person?
100%, yeah. And very recently, what we found to be awesome is if you're doing a launch, just have a free alternative anyway for the people who, especially if it's maybe quite expensive, if it's $100, $200, $500, something like that. The average person, $500 is a lot of money, right? To everyday people. So I have more recently been always trying to have some sort of a free option when we're doing launches, just so that even the people who can't afford to get value from your premium stuff are still getting value by opening that email. And it means that the next time that they see an email from you, they're still going to open it. They're not going to be like, oh, I can't afford this, I'm going to delete this email, right? So I try and create that mentality where everybody is going to open your email and have that as high open rate as possible, and give the ability to anybody to be a lead, essentially.
Yeah, the other thing I think about that is like, especially as an agency or if you're a freelancer selling link building, you might as well just tell everybody exactly how to do it, your systems, your checklists, your SOPs, give away everything. Clients will realize how difficult it is to implement. And they'll be like, do you know what? I'm just going to hire John down the road who seems to know what he's talking about.
Yep. Once you start talking to clients about like anchor text distribution ratios and things like that, they're like, like totally going over their head kind of thing. And generally speaking, that's all. I think that's why people can also charge more for links. It's because the perception is it's that learning curve, right? Being able to pick up all the lingo alone is pretty crazy in links, because when you start going to like link building conferences, people are talking about all sorts of mad stuff when it comes to orphan links and ratios and doing this formula and extracting this output and outreaching to this segment of this list, and all of these kind of things becomes a lot more technical than the average person can even comprehend, let alone actually execute themselves. So a lot of the time, like you said, it's good to just reveal everything that you're doing, because it's quite a technical, long-winded process, and 99% of the people on the planet don't want to spend that time doing that.
That's it. Because if let's say your ideal customer is a 7-figure or 8-figure plumber, something like that, maybe a local company, there's just no way on this planet they're going to do the link building themselves. They're not going to be logging into Pitchbox and setting up all the DR and stuff like that. And so it's okay to give away all the secrets.
100%, exactly. And the more you show the tool stack, actually, that's even more of a great idea. Sell a link to Lily Ray.
So Stephen says his dream is to sell a link to Lily Ray. Is it possible?
To be fair, right, there is definitely links that you can sell that aren't actually against Google's guidelines, technically. Things like press releases, you are fine to sell press releases, and they are still buying links, but they're not discounted against Google's algorithms and stuff, right? So you could get away with it, but I don't think Lily would ever publicly admit buying any links and stuff. I'll give Steven $10,000 if he can sell Lily Ray a Parasite page.
I'll double that. I'll double it.
Yeah.
All right. Sudeep says, is link building like blogs backlinks?
Yes, exactly. Basically, 100%. And also the main thing right now is what I was going to say is that you can, if you have got domains, or we were talking about projects and stuff, but even if you've got domains, right, like expired domains, age domains, or you've got domains sitting around that have got any links whatsoever, throw up an AI site on it, $2 for the content and a free theme and stuff like that. Create like a write for us or a contribute for us page, something along those lines. Stick sponsored on that page so that all the people who are crawling for search operators and things start finding your site, and just wait for the emails to come in and wait for them to offer you money, right? I've done it routinely now, where we've been able to build sites for less than $15 off of domains that have just been sitting around. And those sites have been able to generate $150 per post in sales. So 10 times the revenue it costs to build the site off of selling one link, right?
Yeah, it's so good for that. Like when people reach out, they just have no idea how much they want to buy a backlink for, do they? And so like if you're a website owner and you're filtering through and you're saying, right, I'm just going to sell to the high quality blogs, you know, you can basically put your finger up in the air and decide a rate at that point, right? Because there's no set prices. It's a private negotiation between you and that website.
100%, yep.
Ismail says, is it true that backlinks lose value over time when you're using the 301 redirect backlink?
So number one, if you're using 301 redirect method, they will initially lose juice because of link dampening and things like that, right? In general, from what we can tell, it's between a 30 to 70% loss in link value. And that is like direct juice value. So the amount of power that link is sending to you, you are losing 30 to 70% of it just by putting it through a 301 redirect, right? That is an external 301 redirect. Internal 301 redirects aren't the same thing. They will pass 100% juice. There is a limit on that if you are doing redirect chains, right? So if you have like 4 redirects going through a redirect, going through a redirect, going through another redirect, finally going to your page, then you're going to lose some value internally. And also it's going to be bad for Google's crawlers anyway, and they're going to reduce the crawl budget on your website. When it comes to links linking to your 301 redirects and losing value over time, that's not really the case. But links in general will either lose value over time because they are losing the initial signals that they once had, because they lose, for example, let's say a newspaper covered your article, right? When that article goes live, it is probably on the homepage. It's probably on the number 1 spot on the category page. It's getting all this additional internal link juice to your site, right? Then it's maybe got some syndicated submission links as well. All of those aspects will degrade over time. The syndication sites will slowly remove the pages. The internal links from the category page and the homepage will slowly be removed because they will be replaced by fresher content. So if over time, that link becomes less valuable anyway, because the signals that were pointing to it slowly degrade away. That's just the case with all links, right? There are very few links that grow in value over time, and those tend to be links from evergreen pages or evergreen content, right? So those tend to be posts that are ranking number 1 for like broken link building guide or something like broken backlink guide or something like that, right? But those posts are very rare and few and far in between, and 99.9% of links aren't going to be those links, right? Most links, 99% of links are going to degrade over time. And that doesn't matter if it's through a 301 or not, but a 301 will increase the amount of degradation that you're going to get anyway, inherently.
Really good question from Christopher, who was asking, is there any evidence yet that LLMs are using links as a factor in determining which information it uses to train its models?
So, no, but yes. So, from what we can tell, when these companies like Google and Microsoft are training the models, they are prioritizing the data that they're training the model on, right? So, for example, this is obviously complete speculation, but it's logical to think that when OpenAI is training GPT originally, GPT-3, GPT-2, GPT-1 even, they would probably prioritize Wikipedia data over Reddit common data, right? Because it's a summarization of multiple human elements being summarized into this one piece of content by multiple, ideally human expert authors, versus a single Reddit comment, right? From potentially, who knows what that person is. It could even be a spam bot who's commenting that, right? So we do see some prioritization over the content at a domain level from where that content is sourced from and the context around it, and maybe even like authorship attribution as well. So they're trying to make it so that specific experts in their field are more credible than journalists who are covering the same thing kind of stuff. But when it comes to links being a specific factor in that prioritization, there's basically no evidence for it yet, unless you're talking about things like Google AI overviews. And even then, we haven't really seen much prioritization around links. And there doesn't seem to be a massive, especially kind of 6 months ago, there wasn't much safety or like anti-spam procedures going on with the AI overviews. And we would continually see very, very spammy websites being a primary source in AI overviews versus, a very credible site. So I think they have started to improve that recently, but there's not really much credible evidence that links are being used. I think they will be in the future though, especially, and also actually, to an extent, Perplexity is also using links, to be fair, as well. Like Perplexity does do the chain of thought when you use pro search. So it will search for one keyword, it will open pages, and then it will open pages that link within that page. But it is doing a prioritization system to open relevant links inside of links kind of thing. And that is maybe the only thing you could say there. I know that's a bit of a long-winded answer, but so is everything with AI these days, I think.
Yeah, that's it. Where do you see, the next 12 to 16 months when it comes to link building? How do you see the industry and SEO changing as a whole?
Yeah, so like I said, I think we've seen a move more and more towards links over the last few years. And I definitely would think that would be more of the case going forward. I just don't see there being a massive change when it comes to how we are building them. I just think that there will be an increase in people needing them and spend around them. I do think that Google will eventually somehow embed AI more into how it is analyzing these links. I just think that right now, A, it's too expensive to do so, and B, they're trying to actively reduce their processing costs because of all the index bloat that they're seeing because of AI in the first place. I think Google's, from when ChatGPT released to now, Google's index has gone up like 1,000% or something. It's really quite crazy. And that is even with them trying to filter out pages that they're not trying to put into it, right? Because they think that they're low quality or spam or AI generated. So even with them trying to filter stuff out, they're still seeing 10 times more pages than they ever had done beforehand. So I definitely think that will inherently, and already has inherently, affected the signals that are being sent from pages and content and on page. And that then in turn, even if they don't necessarily boost link signals directly, because they've deboosted content signals, then the link signals are now inherently worth more. Because if you have one algorithm, right, and let's say you put 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, right, if you just reduce 1 to 8%, but you don't put that 2% anywhere else, the other one's worth 10% and now worth more than they were previously, right? So that's the exact same thing that will happen here and is happening with content and links.
Do you think that we had another SEO on, I think it was Daniel Foley Carter, who was talking about how Google is trying to reduce costs as well because it's trying to reduce the carbon footprint.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that as well?
Yeah. So they do this like eco green report I think it's twice a year actually, every 6 months or so. And 2 years ago or so, they basically said that they're going to reduce refresh crawling. So they're trying to reduce refresh crawling. So it basically means if they've already crawled and indexed your page and they think that page is a static page, so it's not dynamic, which means it's not changing, then they're going to reduce the amount of times they're going to crawl that page again in the future. So maybe it was the case that page would get crawled twice per day. Now it's going to get crawled twice per week or something like that, right? And that has been happening for about the last 12 months. The only issue that they're having is because of all the new pages that they're getting, that kind of work to reduce their overall crawl rate hasn't really happened, because at the same time that they did the work, so they have reduced their overall crawling to individual websites. They just haven't reduced their overall crawling, right? They've actually increased it.
And Web Ninja AI was talking about what are the best ways to get free backlinks to your website blog. This is something we're really going to deep dive into in a couple of days, right? Less than 48 hours now. We're doing the link building blueprint. It's basically going to be like a 5 or 6 hour masterclass on link building. Pretty crazy stuff. What's your take on that? And anything you want to say about that too?
Yeah, so number one, in terms of getting free backlinks to your website or blog, it massively depends on your niche, right? So let me just have a sip of water as well.
A lot of talking going on.
A lot of talking as usual. Massively depends on your niche and website, right? So I was talking about video games earlier. Video game niche for selling links is one of the worst ones to be in because you get paid like $15 for a DR30 guest post or something. When it comes to actually building links, it's one of the easiest, right? Because so many gamers are constantly on forums, on Reddit. They have their own mini blogs. They've got their own YouTube channels. They've got all of this stuff. That actually getting people to link to you in gaming is one of the easiest things you can do. If you had a blog on cement, right, on how you mix and pour cement and how you create cement driveways and how you create cement blocks and things like that, right? That niche is going to be considerably more difficult to get people to, for free, link to your site. It's going to be particularly difficult to get people to even care about your website, to be fair, but it's going to be significantly more difficult to get them to link to it. Right?
Whoa. So, are you saying people don't care about how to mix cement? Is that what you're telling me?
You know,
should I shut the website down?
Yeah, I'm guessing the RPMs are astronomical on that one. And the amount of people that are at a building site getting their phone out and looking up how to pour cement, right, when they're already at the building site, that must be huge. However, I definitely think, so I definitely think that with some niches, though, it's really easy to get them. Number one, you should always be doing the bare minimum anyway. So your foundational links, 99% of foundational links, you don't need to spend any money on, right? So you're doing things like your social profiles, your citations, your about references, your reference sites, all things like that. They're mostly free. So you just build your profiles and your citations for your website, and that gives you your entity stacking and your initial boost. And then you try and gain links to specific pages that need them here and there. For the spirituality niche, it should actually be fairly easy, to be honest. I've done a lot of work with like I don't know if if you're in this niche, you will know like shadow work and numbers and all these kind of things and stuff and angel numbers and stuff, right?
Like numerology sort of thing, right?
Exactly, yeah. So a lot of it is there is some stuff that is even more stuff about like shadow healing and things like that, which is really quite out there. And I've spoken to a few people who are in those sort of niches, and there's a lot of money in it, to be fair. But it's actually quite easy to get them to link to you, especially if you've got some new information or if you're covering newer topics, right? So with spirituality, there's always events going on. There's always holidays going on. There's always like meetups even and things like that. If you can just start covering those, people will constantly organically link to you, right? Especially if you're posting it out there, you're sending it to other travel bloggers. That's the other thing, right? A lot of people don't create blogging groups, right? So this was one of the first things that I did when I started out building links. Was I was a teenager when I started building links, right? And I had no money. I was maybe making like $500 a month when I was like 14 or something like that, right? So I realized that if I need to build links in a niche, that the only real way is through relationship building and getting other bloggers to link to me. So I would create like blogger Facebook groups for travel or for gaming or for gambling or for whatever, right? And I would be the admin and I would pin my post to the top of there, being like, if you need to swap links, come and swap links with me, right? But that also then allowed me to kind of get more of a relationship building going on with that community and kind of be seen as one of the top people in that industry for blogging specifically, right? And that then gives you more ideas, more connections, more relationships, more things to cover, all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, that's it. Just coming back to that spirituality example, I'll show you what worked really well for us. This is a case study we published on hunter.io. Basically, this is literally the email template that we used for link building. And we blasted that out to a lot of different websites. And, a lot will say no, or a lot will say you got to pay or whatever like that. But a decent amount will come back, especially in the spirituality niche where people are a bit more free spirited and they're not so like commercially minded, I would say. And so it's much easier to get free backlinks in that niche. And it's just the numbers game where you have to send enough emails out to get enough backlinks in. It's kind of like we were talking about before. It's like the more people that know about your website and the more people you reach out to, the more likely you are to get free backlinks using that method. Now, when it comes to the outreach, you can use a tool like Hunter Campaigns, or you can send the outreach emails yourself manually And there are tools as well like GMass as well that can do that for you, and then just follow up as well. So you can easily so if you're like, okay, what email do I send? Here's a template you can just steal from me. This is from Hunter.io. So if you type in my name and backlinks Hunter.io, you'll find it on Google. And then if you're wondering, okay, what do I follow up with? Here's an example right here, and you can see how we've just included some like spiritual related puns inside the email copy to convince people, like we're in the spirituality niche as well. Why don't you link to us? Additionally, what I would say is like, before you start sending out the outreach emails, just make sure you verify them, right? Because most of the emails you find out there are going to bounce, 50% are going to be wrong, that sort of thing. And so if you could do some outreach like this, you're going to get more backlinks in. And this is proven to work with me. Like you can see the referring domains for this website just flew up when we started building backlinks to them. It got de-indexed as being a public case study, but that it was a manual de-index. Like it was working so well, the site had to be manually shut down. It was like it couldn't be stopped by the algorithm. And so this process just works over and over again. And this is what I'd recommend to anyone out there, really, in terms of getting backlinks. So we'll keep going through now. And Jesse Cunningham, another legend in the game, says, what's your process of warming up domains for blasting outreach emails for backlinks?
Yeah, so number one, we tend to use a different style of outreach than most people. So we're not normally outreaching from the client or from the customer or from the website. We're normally creating a fake entity. So normally a digital PR agency or something like that, and we're outreaching through that. In terms of warming them up, we just use Lemlist normally, I think, and use the warming up tool within there. Connect G Suite in, and then let that do. I think it sends like 150 emails or something like that every time you do it, and it normally just does it pretty easily, pretty fast, and you don't really have to do anything after that. Email deliverability, once you start scaling up link building outreach, is a massive pain in the ass, and it does become a big issue. At our peak with DFY, I think we're sending like 100,000 emails a day for our outreach database, which was like absurd, and it started to really impact our deliverability. It started to really impact like our domains were getting blacklisted, all of that kind of stuff, right? And the way we solved it was basically just by creating more. So we just started creating more assets so that we were sending from sending from more and more emails, and so that it had less volume individually.
Yeah, our process was typically, what we do is we'll if we're starting off with a brand new domain, we'll get something quite generic, not specific to that site, which means that we can reach out for multiple sites. Because like you say, it's such a hassle to warm up one single domain. You might as well have a blanket domain that can do outreach for any website, and then you can use that straight off the bat, and you don't have to like start warming up. But when you're warming up a new domain, what I would say is, number one, start off with the basics. So set up your SPF, your DKIM, your DMARC, all those sort of stuff. And then from there as well, make sure that you just start off really slowly. So like 5 emails a day for a week, then 10 emails for a day the next week. Check your open rates, check your bounce rates, do a few tests as well. And also like just be really careful that once you start seeing the open rates drop in and it drops down to something silly like 10 or 5%, it's time to get a new domain. Like you're at the game at that point. But it's rare to see that nowadays, to be honest with you. And Web Ninja AI says, what about commenting on other blogs? So you will get backlinks. You're already shaking your head there, Charles. You're already shaking your chain.
Yeah, like number one, it used to be a fantastic tactic, right? So we used to call it like niche blog commenting for link building. And 10 years ago, it used to be one of the best ways to get foundational links for your site, because you could go and get niche relevant no follow links from pages that had 500 referring domains and things like that, right? You needed to be very particular, and you can't spam or anything like that. You need to write genuine comments, probably read some of the content, stuff like that. Absolutely fantastic now that you can get AI to summarize the articles and then comment for you. However, the comment links aren't the same. The system that we used to use to get those links, which was the built-in WordPress comment system, was fundamentally changed by WordPress. They removed the website field and things like that. And then a lot of the other CMSs that we were using that were not WordPress at the time A, started becoming a lot less popular and WordPress just started dominating everything. And then B, they also started catching on and removing those website fields in the comment sections as well. However, if you can find some sites that are in your niche that have got those comments enabled and that there aren't a huge amount of other commenters spamming, there's not 543 comments to Viagra sites and things like that in the comments, then I would probably go ahead and still build them. But though, that's probably like 10 sites in every industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. So as we get to like the last sort of 10, 15 minutes in this live stream, just want to recap for everyone. So we've talked about, how you got started selling backlinks and how you scaled to 250K a month. We've talked about the future of link building and how it's actually becoming more and more important, especially as Google's algorithm downplays content and topical authority a little bit, simply because of the amount of AI content out there. And like, link building is probably the biggest differentiator between all of this stuff. We've also talked about how to get clients and basically just reach out to more people, plus create more content. We've also we've talked about creating websites so you can sell backlinks on. A few other questions that I just want to blast through with you that people might still have about the whole topic is, what would you say are the best ways to price your backlinks? How do you price your backlinks?
Yeah, so number one, so actually that's very hard because I can automatically like give you prices in my head for niches and things, and that's like just muscle memory at this stage, So actually, I wouldn't even know to tell you how I just know like what a link is worth now, if you know what I mean. Like the SEO intuition is too strong, I think now. But like the first thing you have to start is what is it valuable? What is the value of your link to other people, right? So if you're a DR10 site, maybe it's actually worth your time to increase your DR a little bit before you start trying to really sell some links, because you'll get a lot more money if you can get to that DR 20, 25 mark than if you're staying at like 10, 15 kind of stage, right? When it comes to actually pricing though, it's like I said, it's just so niche dependent that it would massively depend on your niche and even your language, right? So a lot of people don't know that English isn't even the most expensive language for links anymore, right? There are other languages that are more expensive for links, so Norwegian and things like that, right? So there's a few other countries that have got higher GDP per capita than the US and the UK, and they're using Google primarily, and their algorithm is very weak, and it's primarily based on links. So generally speaking, it's got a kind of a three-way factor. How authoritative is your website and how relevant is it to your given niche? How spammy is it and how authoritative is your domain? And then also, what are people paying for your language as well, if it's not in English?
Yeah. How would you recommend for someone like interested in freelancing or being an agency in the link building space? How would you recommend them differentiate themselves from everyone else?
Yeah. So number one, I would probably just start niching down. And so actually, that would be number two. Sorry. Number one, I would play into your strengths and advantages, right? Generally speaking, in link building, normally you will have some sort of an advantage over somebody else in your given expertise or knowledge or resources or connections or relationships or anything like that, right? You play into those straight away. Don't try and come into the industry completely empty-handed and then just holding a cup out kind of thing, right? Trying to gather some stuff together. Try and come in with a slight advantage to somebody else who has nothing, right? And you will go considerably further than if you didn't have anything. The second part, again, would be trying to make sure that you are niching down to whichever specific industry. If you have got an advantage in that industry, that's even better. But if you don't have any advantages in industries, then trying to niche down to something that you at least have knowledge of, right? If you're 18 years old, fresh out of high school, and you're just doing link building, doing law probably isn't the best niche to go and build links for, because you're going to be having to speak to old lawyers and trying to figure out their legal terminology and make sure that you're compliant with their practices and their legal requirements in building links in the first place. And all of this really quite high level, very experienced and, more mature kind of stuff where newer kids in technology and TikTok and all this kind of crazy stuff going on, it's going to be a lot more fast paced. And you don't want to be getting told, you have to wait to build a link because the lawyers don't like it, kind of thing, right? So I would always try and make sure you're picking a niche that you can actually make good profit in. So don't pick concrete, right? We've already covered that one. That's not going to make you any money, really.
Niche.
Yeah, it's game over for that one. Unfortunately, my love for concrete is never going to make me any money. But so yeah, pick a niche that you can make money with, but also isn't really susceptible to change, right? So that's the other thing. For example, with COVID, when COVID rolled around and rolled out, if you were a travel agency, so you were an SEO agency or a link building agency catering to travel, you got completely wrecked, right? In the beginning of COVID. Try not to have industries that are susceptible to those hardcore rapid changes. Anything that is really susceptible to like government regulation and things like that, don't try and go for those niches. Try and stick to stuff that is stable and has a good amount of money in it and that will continue to have that money in that pot for the next several decades at least.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Ismail asks, when did you guys start learning SEO?
I started learning SEO like 16 years ago, to be fair. The majority of my initial learning was 100% just testing, and I was watching like Rand Fishkin's Whiteboard Fridays in like 2006 and stuff like that. And a lot of that stuff was my early learning. And then I really started getting to the next level once I started networking and once I started, speaking to the bigger guys. To be very frank, I didn't even realize, there were people that were worth $100 million from SEO, and there are several, right? There are people that are on their way to being billionaires from this industry, right? So I definitely, having that perception of that even being possible gives you a massive leg up to understanding and going where you should be. And like I said, you want to be you want to try and adapt as much as you can on your own, because if you are constantly taught things in SEO, that's the worst way to be. As an SEO, you need to be able to be self-taught. You need to be able to go and find information, to be able to learn things yourself, to be able to adapt information. It's because it changes so rapidly that you can't constantly be having somebody telling you how to do something or what to do or something like that. It's basically the opposite of going to university, right? Like you have to be 100% independent research initially, and then you really start leveling up your business and your SEO knowledge and stuff when you start networking with the people who are already there.
Yeah, that's it. And so we've covered, why you shouldn't rely on mouth to mouth. We've also covered Stephen's idea of differentiating himself by being an SEO stripper. And as we keep going now, Victor said, what are the best services for an SEO agency to sell?
Online reputation management is probably number one, most profitable and highest charging. You just build free social profiles and citations and reference sites and charge $25,000 per project to remove people with free sites that they could have built themselves with a phone and an SMS card. I do think that when it comes to selling other SEO services, it massively depends on you as an agency, right? Like there are some agencies that should probably only be selling technical SEO because they're really technical, former developers that don't have any experience really in link building and stuff. And if you're selling a holistic SEO approach and your field is very narrow, then you're going to over deliver in that one field and under deliver in everything else. And the holistic kind of nature of your approach isn't going to be very holistic at all. I think that, again, you just need to play into your strengths and play into your advantages and things like that. So if you're really good at technical SEO, sell technical SEO. If you're really good at building links, sell links, but just try some stuff, right? That's the beauty of SEO, is you can do one project and try every aspect of SEO on one website, right? So on one niche even. And you don't even have to spend that much money to test a lot of things.
Yeah, I still think that if you're at the point where you're making less than 100K a month, just sell one service and just do it really well. And then, after that, you can add one or two more services in. But it's like the more niche you are, the easier it's going to be to just do everything else, like keeping clients, hiring, systems, operations. It all gets very messy if you've got twice the complexity or 3 times the complexity with different services.
Yeah, and those other services can affect your other services, right? So if you are a web design agency that's selling SEO and PPC, you sell a website, they're happy with the website, you do the SEO, they're happy with the SEO, but then they overspend on PPC 1 month, you've lost that client, right? because you didn't deliver on that one specific area, but you've delivered excellent value everywhere else. They just weren't happy with that one thing, and you've lost them. And that happens all the time. So I definitely agree that people should be 100% niching down and focusing down. I do think that there is some level depending on where you are. So like if you're in a country where there is no competition, there is certain countries where the biggest SEO agency in that country has 50 people, like the number one agency in the whole country has 50 people. So that those kind of countries, maybe the competition is so weak that actually you can sell everything because nobody is good at anything, kind of thing. Right?
That's true. We've got, Jesse Cunningham. He wants to know why you've got beef with the concrete marketing industry.
I love concrete, man. That's what I was saying. Yeah, came to Thailand. Why didn't concrete excite you guys? It's just one of those niches where the average person who knows about concrete isn't Googling about concrete, So it's one of those niches where the people who are in the know and care about it don't care enough to be spending their days searching about it online.
Awesome. Well, you've answered every single question in a lot of detail. So I think everyone appreciates that on the live stream. Appreciate everyone who's been on the live stream and asked questions or tuned in. So thanks very much for watching. We've got the link building blueprint going live in less than 48 hours now. Anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, 100%. Just if you go to goldieseo.com, it's a completely live webinar experience where we'll be giving you a masterclass in link building. So I'll be starting with a small opening presentation, kind of giving you a beginner's introduction to links and also how you should be approaching links in 2024. And then Julian's going to go into his own presentation, then actually be building a live building links and a link campaign on screen for you to see in person, as well as a bunch of case studies with all the URLs and everything of exactly how we've kind of built these links over the years and how much success they've had for clients as well. And also you get all the downloadables as well. So you get all the, if you want to start your own link building service, like we've just said in this stream, then you should be joining this webinar because you get all of the downloadables from Julian's agency that's already doing 6 figures a month. And if you're wanting to kind of scale to that very quickly, then you've got the solutions in front of you for a very cheap price, for the same price that you could be charging for one link.
Yeah, that's it. It's basically a swipe and deploy, isn't it? Like all the best checklists, all the best recipes from the systems that we've got, we're going to be giving away in that webinar. And then also we'll be just showing you what works for us from, the last 7 years of link building for hundreds of clients and scaling up. So it's going to be absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you guys there.
Appreciate it. And Helene says, you two are the best. So thank you very much.
I appreciate
Helene,
it. Thank you, Helene.
Thank you very much. Awesome. All right. Cheers then.